Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm Paige. I'm an alcoholic. And it's like, yeah, I need the timer. If you guys hang out with me on a Wednesday, you know I push that. So I definitely appreciate any sort of timer and like, hey, quiet down, Paige. Alrighty. So yeah, I was asked if I could speak on the topic leap of faith. And I remember, and I also want to say welcome. Welcome to those that are new to Alcoholics Anonymous. Welcome to those that are coming back. And welcome to those that have been around here a while and might be struggling. And I remember when I was new to Alcoholics Anonymous, I came to the meetings and there was this old timer and he's still around. He's still sober. And he said, Paige, everything you want in life is outside of your comfort zone. And what I told him was, yeah. But what I was thinking was, are you out of your flipping mind? Are you nuts? No, you're crazy. Like, no, I don't know. I want my comfy zone, please and thank you. Like my little, my comfy zone. But what he forgot or didn't realize or just didn't share with me is the truth of Alcoholics Anonymous. Which is when I stay in my comfort zone begins to shrink. And I know here at ODAAT, we definitely don't have anyone that has a history of isolating. No, we don't have anyone that has ever done that and ignored calls and messages, anything like that. And I think for those of us who might relate, we know what it's like. The more that I isolate, the more that I withdraw, the more that I lean into me and my alcoholism, the smaller my world gets. But here's what my friend forgot to tell me about getting outside of my comfort zone. See, I thought I would take a step outside of my comfort zone. It would be awful and scary and it would stay that way. But what I did not know and what I did not realize and what I had to learn as the result of taking the 12 steps actions, which are tremendously outside of my comfort zone, is that the more that I take those steps outside of my comfort zone, the more that my comfort zone grows. You see, when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I didn't share. For like 9 months, probably, you guys. For like 9 months, they'd be like, would you in the back? And I'll let you know, I was probably I remember there would be a pillar and I'd be trying to hide right behind that, like, y'all can't see me. And they would be like, would the young lady behind the pillar like to share? And I'd be like, no, thank you. Like that was how I was showing up. And now we need to emphasize a timer, because otherwise I am not, we can't shut me up, right? And the thing that was when I got here so uncomfortable, so scary, so overwhelming is now a thing that y'all want me to do every Wednesday, and I'm privileged to do it. Love you guys. And that's how my comfort zone grows. And so when I talk about that leap of faith, I'm always directed for me to page 59. If you have your book with you, we can go there. If you don't worry about it. Page 59, and it is the first full paragraph on page 59. And it says, half measures availed us nothing, which I will point out is a little rude. Because you know what I mean? Like, when I'm showing up here, I'm all about those half measures. Like, I kind of feel like, I know I shouldn't get all of it if I'm doing half of it, but I kind of feel like I should get a little something for something. You guys know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm at least showing up. Give me a little something. And we joke about half measures. But I just want to explain very clearly, when it says half measures avail us nothing, what does that mean? That means that anything less than all 12 steps is a way of life, and I will drink again. That is what that means. And that changes the tone. Now, what I really want to speak about is we stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. And you see on page 39, we are on the precipice. We are on the edge of a cliff. It is the turning point for my entire life. And I don't know it and I don't like it. And it's like, what is happening? But what we're standing on is the edge of the cliff. But how do we get there? You see, I'm an alcoholic. And, I've spent many years, probably not that many. I got sober young, but I spent many it was rough, guys. I was, if you're like, she got sober young. Yeah, it was bad. The dumpster that was my life was on fire quite quickly. I'm an efficient sort of alcoholic. But you see what happened is I found myself wandering in the forest that is alcoholism. You know, I don't know about you, but I was born and I was filled with this tremendous sense of restless, irritable discontent, this tremendous sense that at the core of my being, who I am is not enough, and I was not okay. And I was always looking for a place that I could fit, a place that I could belong, a place where my skin fit. Now, that does not make me alcoholic, but that is what we treat in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was looking for an answer, and I was looking for a solution, and what I found was a path. And that path was alcohol. And I started walking on this path of alcohol, and wouldn't you know it, it worked. You know, it worked. I would take that drink and I would experience that, you guys know what I'm saying. I would take a drink and what I would find was a solution for life. I would take a drink and my shoulders, man, I was wearing those bad boys as earrings, and y'all can tell I don't do jewelry that often. And they would fall. And I would be okay in my skin. Man, I would take a drink and I would get a solution, and it was the answer. So how could I not wander more and more into the forest? And what happens? As I take that drink, I get that sense of ease and comfort. But what I do not know is that lingering in the shadows of that forest, there is a monster. And that monster is my alcoholism. And I'm out in the forest, I'm walking, I'm minding my own business, and this monster jumps out and it takes a swipe at me. And what that swipe begins to look like is the allergy of the body. You see, as an alcoholic, I take a drink. I experience that sense of ease and comfort, if only for an instant. And there's a little switch that goes off in the back of my head, and it tells me more. And the more that I drink, the louder that more gets. See, I take a drink, and my first drink, it demands a second. And my second drink insists on 4. And my fourth drink will not relent until I've had 8. And my 8th drink is screaming at me until I've had 16. You know, I take that drink, and that drink takes me, and I don't know about you, but once I start to drink, and here is the pain that comes from the allergy. That is technically what the allergy looks like, but here is the pain. The pain is I take a drink and I find myself drinking beyond lines in the sand that I said I would never cross. I drink myself into, there's the timer. I'll trust you guys on that. No, sorry, focus. I really hope you guys in the background, thank you service team, love you. We're trying to figure out, oh no, we can't get the timer. I did have an eye on the time. Please always know I have a loosey-goosey eye on the time. But thank you. So you see what happens is I take that drink and I cross these lines in the sand I said I would never cross. I begin to lose things. And I'm not just talking about my shoes and my pants, but I lost those too. I'm talking about my dignity. I'm talking about my self-respect. I'm talking about hopes and dreams and goals. I lost who I was. I began to break things, and I'm not just talking about, breaking a coffee table when you fall through it. I never broke a bone, but I'm not talking about bruises and getting banged up in that way. I'm talking I broke hearts. I broke trust. I broke relationships. I broke opportunities. I broke dreams. I broke goals. I broke it. I smashed it to bits. And you see, every time that happened, that monster would take a swipe. And time after time, I began to realize that I cannot drink. I cannot drink responsibly. I can't drink safely. I need to stay sober. See, I don't know about you, but I'm the sort of alcoholic I would scrape myself up off the bathroom floor. And with everything that was in me, I would say, I'm never going to drink again. And I meant it. I meant it. And I would say, that's it. I'm staying the heck away from that monster. And I would begin to run. And I ran, and I would give it everything that I got to try to get away from the monster that is the first drink. And you see, that's the thing. I was trying things. I wasn't just lying down, having a nap in the tulips. I was running from this thing, and I was doing everything that I could do to put between me and the monster that is that first drink. and I would sprint. And it was like, man, the inevitability of that first drink. And actually, man, I'm cold here, so we're bouncing around. You don't have to bounce if you don't want to. Page 37. You see what happens. Page 37, when it talks about, it's the second full paragraph, you may think this is an extreme case. To us, it is not far-fetched. We're talking about our case of Jim. He put some whiskey in his milk. He got a case of the Sunleys. That's not crazy for us. We all know what it is like to say, I'm never going to drink again, and get a case of the Sunleys. It says, we have sometimes reflected more than Jim did upon the consequences, but there was always the curious mental phenomenon that parallel with our sound reasoning, there inevitably ran some insanely trivial excuse for taking the first drink. Our sound reasoning failed to hold us in check. The insane idea went out. The next day we could ask ourselves in all earnestness and sincerity how it could have happened. What that means is the monster of alcoholism, man, it gets me. And I'm somehow, by some miracle, I'm still alive, I'm badly beaten. I pull myself up and I've got to run. And if you've ever heard Alcoholics Anonymous, it's not a race, that's not true. This paragraph is telling me it is a race. And what I am racing, who I am racing, is I am racing the inevitability of that first drink. So I push myself up and I begin to run. And I'm giving it my best. I'm giving it my everything. But time after time after time, that monster, it begins to close the gap. And it gets me again. And I'm beaten and I'm hurt and I scrape myself up off the bathroom floor and I run again. And I'm doing everything that I can to put between me and that first drink. I did not try everything, but everything that I tried failed. So I'm trying to use my willpower. I'm using fear. I'm using a relationship. I'm getting out of the relationships. I'm doing the geographic. I did the gym. I did doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists. I did not try everything. But none of the things that I put between me and the monster that was that first drink worked for me. And I would give it a full sprint. And I'll let you know, when it was bad, when that alcoholism kicked my butt and I was ravaged by this thing, I would get a head start. I would even get a head start. But I'm up against a 20-foot tall monster that knows these woods. Man, it is not about if I drink again. It is about when I drink again. It doesn't matter how fast I am. I would give it my all and run, and I would hide in the bushes, hide in a tree. It doesn't matter how smart I was. It does not matter. All the things that I put between me and the first drink, none of it was sufficient. I could not experience permanent and contented sobriety. And getting caught again and again and again by this monster that is alcoholism, I began to see that there was no way out. And it got me again, and I would pull myself up, and I run into this clearing. And I end up at the edge of this cliff, and that's where we left off on page 39. You know, the turning point, and it is the cliff. I'm at the edge of the cliff, and I look behind me. And my step one experience is I look behind me and I see the monster that is my alcoholism barreling towards me. It is not a matter of if, but when I drink again. There's nothing between me and the monster in this clearing. That's what it means to be defenseless. That's what it means to be powerless. It is coming, and it's going to get me. And there is nothing that I can do to stop it. And so I look over the edge of that cliff, and what I see is a cloud. There is a deep fog, a deep mist, and it is a cloud of unknowing. And of course I stole that from a 14th century monk, but not my thought, but there is this cloud of unknowing. And I cannot see beyond that cloud. I can't see what it's going to look like on the other side, but what do I hear? I hear your voices, you who have recovered, who are sober and happy at the same time, who have taken this course of action. I hear you saying, jump, jump, take that leap of faith. And you see, Because the monster is barreling down, I've got nowhere else to go. And because I can trust the light that is on in your eyes. I can trust the joy that you have in your spirit. I can trust that you have something I do not have. I take that leap of faith. Now on page 59, it says we asked. And any time in this book, we say we ask. That is a prayer. God, higher power, creator, spirit of the universe, I ask your protection and care with complete abandon. And how do I leap? How do I take that leap of faith? What I do is I make that decision. That is my third step. And I leap by picking up my pen and my paper and beginning my 4-step inventory. I share the contents of that inventory and any deep, dark secret I have with my sponsor, the person who is receiving my 5th step. I take that quiet hour. I do my step 6 and my step 7. I go out and I make amends for the harms that I've caused. I continue that process 4 through 9 in step 10. I continue it in step 11. I pray and I meditate and I deepen that relationship, and then I give what I found to others. That is the leap that I take. And let's be honest, on page 24, it says almost none of us liked the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings, which the process required for its successful consummation. What that means is almost none of us liked the steps. Every single one of us was like, oh boy, I don't want to do any of those. Like none of us was like, that's a great idea. I can't wait. I've got my notebook right here. You know what I mean? Almost none of us thought this was a good idea. All of us. And this is me. I know I shouldn't speak in absolutes, but let's be real. All of us were scared of the 5th step. All of us were scared of step 9. Most of us were scared to sponsor. The leap of faith is doing it anyways. And Alcoholics Anonymous does not care about my motives, does not care about whether I'm afraid, does not care if I feel that I am deserving of it, does not care about my thoughts or opinions on the process. I can think it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, and I can think it will not work for me. But my experience is again and again and again, if I take that leap of faith, I will get the result. I will get the result. It does not ask that I think, feel, believe anything. Alcoholics Anonymous asks that I do. And the do that is asked of me is these 12 steps as outlined in this book, like a way of life. Like my life depends on it, because it does. That is what is asked of me. Now when we talk about, I want to talk about that leap of faith and doing it afraid. If you want to bounce around with me, you don't have to. I wasn't even planning on this being a full-on big book bounce around, but here we are, page 68. If y'all want, no pressure. On Wednesdays, I'm like, I hear that's what the cool kids do, though. I'm just kidding. If you're here today, you're a cool kid, and I love you. So page 68. 3, third paragraph. It says we never apologize to anyone for depending upon our Creator. We can laugh at those who think spirituality the way of weakness. Paradoxically, it is the way of strength. The verdict of the ages is that faith means courage. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let him demonstrate through us what he can do. And that's what we're talking about. You see, you might have heard this, and this is a little controversial. Not all the way controversial, because I do want y'all to like me. But have you ever heard that fear and faith cannot live in the same house? Well, I'll tell you that's not my experience. Because if all men, and when I say men, I mean humanity, if all people of humanity have faith, who have faith have courage, that means that fear and faith have to live in the same house. What I mean by that is if I don't have fear, I have trust. I have trust. But if I have faith, that means that fear and faith are living together. Let me explain it another way. You see, when we talk about all men of faith have courage, it is not courageous to get out of bed in the mornings. It is not courageous to go to work in the mornings. It is not courageous, to show up to AA, except when it is. Except when it takes tremendous courage to get out of bed in the morning. When it takes tremendous courage to get to work. When it takes tremendous courage to come to Alcoholics Anonymous and you don't know if they're going to help you. It takes courage. Fear and faith live together in the same house, so we can do it afraid. We can do it scared. And that's what I found is this book and the power that is on offer as the result of these steps meets us where we're at. It meets me in the fear. It meets me in the uncertainty. It meets me in the, I don't know if this is going to work for me. If I do this, I get well. Fear and faith can live together. And if I take those leaps of faith, that faith will grow and that fear will diminish and that faith will transform into trust. But if you're here today and you're standing on the precipice, the edge of the cliff, and that monster is barreling down towards you and you don't know what it's going to look like on the other side of that cloud. You don't know what's on the other side. Let's bounce around real quick to page 100. It's one of my favorite promises in the book. It says, both you and the new man, it's the first full paragraph, page 100. Both you and the new man must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress. I'm just going to go on I don't have time for a tangent, but I'm going on it anyways. It is spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Not progress, not perfection. You see, it is not based on how I progress in life, the job, the car, the relationship, the house, the money, the opportunities. None of that can keep an alcoholic sober. How am I progressing spiritually? That's what I need to focus on. And it says, if you persist, remarkable things will happen. When we look back, we realize the things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have planned. So what is on the other side if I take that leap of faith? It is God's hands. Who's going to catch me? The God, the higher power, the creator that I don't like and I don't believe in when I'm standing on that edge of the cliff. But that is who catches me again and again and again. God's hands. Follow the dictates. That just means directions of a capital H, capital B, higher power. And what it's saying is we work these 12 steps as a way of life, like our life depends on it, because it does. If I do that, you will presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances. That is the freedom that is on offer. The world becomes my comfort zone. There's a speaker, Mark Houston. He would speak about the ability to wear the world as a loose garment. I'm not constricted by the bondage of self, and what I'll end on, and I'm letting you know I'm ending on it, so just in case I push it with the timer a little, thank you. The plane is being landed. One of the gifts of my sobriety is that I have a niece and a nephew that are in my life, and they're both, the one's a teenager and the other one's like they're both, oh my gosh, they're both teenagers. How did that happen? Oh no. And the gift of this is they've never seen me drink. I've been sober, their whole lives. And man, I got to be a part of their life growing up. And I'll tell you, Auntie's the best. Auntie gets to go home at the end of the night. I'm aware Auntie's the best. But I got to be a part of their lives growing up, and I got to be, it's just, I just love them. They're just incredible kids. And they would both do this thing when they were toddlers. And it is this thing that toddlers do. And I always like to make the joke. Do you know who toddles? It's drunks, toddlers, and penguins. The toddle? Yeah, that's who toddles. And listen, emotionally, we might be toddlers. We ain't no penguins. We're drunks. But they would do this thing that toddlers do. And it is where they climb up on the furniture, on the edge or on the back of the sofa a little bit too high. And time after time after time, they would do this thing. And here's what it sounds like. It sounds like, Auntie Paige, catch, whoo. and they would jump again. And listen, at the time my stomach could handle coffee, so I'd have a cup of coffee in my hand and I have to go, whoa, like don't drop the toddler, and they would do that again and again and again. And they were able to dive in with complete abandon. And I can ask myself, why are they able to do that? Well, the reason that they are able to do that is because they have never been dropped. And that is my experience in Alcoholics Anonymous. There has been pain, there has been life on life's terms, there has been suffering. Because I am a human being and I am not exempt from the human condition. But what I have found is that I truly have never been dropped. Now, if you have not had this experience that I'm talking about here today, what I want you to know is that it does not take long to get well. It is a leap of faith. I can let momentum take me. It does not take long to recover. It does not take long to work the steps. It does not take long to have a spiritual awakening. And it does not take long to find ourselves safely and securely in God's hands. And if the miracle of this and by this I mean if the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous, that permanent contented sobriety, the safely and securely in God's hands, if that has not happened for you yet, please let us help you. Our very life depends on it. Thank you for the opportunity to share.